Now, before you absolutely murder me, I know this isn't how I should start my Souls journey, but hear me out. I have not played a single From Software game, let alone a Souls-like. So I thought with the release of Survivor early next year, and my want to start off slow, why not play Jedi Fallen Order? As far as I know, Jedi Fallen Order is a more linear, story-driven experience, and to me seems like the perfect way to start, so please, don't kill me. Dark Souls is coming soon. But before I embarrass myself, if you'd like to subscribe or interact in general, I'd really appreciate it, and it's all free. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to structure this little series, so I'm sorry if it seems a little disjointed at times, but let's start with the story. We start off on the planet of Braca, where we meet the two best scrappers to ever exist, Prof and our main protagonist Cal Kestis. We are reassigned to make sure clamps are on correctly, where we have to do some perilous climbing, and see our first sighting of anything Jedi, a ship that was shot down. Stupidly enough, the portion of the ship we were on was cut off and left to drop, where we almost fall, and we see Cal use his force to save his best friend.
Prof! No!
Sadly, it was seen by the probe drone, which reported the incident to the Empire. They stop our train and search for the Jedi and threaten all who stand, and because we save Prof, he tries to buy us time but ends up losing his life.
No!
We try to kill the Inquisitor, known as the Second Sister, who just blocks our attack, and we end up being thrown off the end by the Ninth Sister. We land on the Imperial train, where we have to fight through and avoid being blasted to shreds, so that we can flee and go back into hiding. But instead, we come face to face with the Second Sister one more time, before being rescued by a ship called the Mantis and their members Seer and Grease. They fly us to the planet of Bogano, where it's thought to hold an artifact that can be used to rebuild the Jedi Order, a holocron, which contains the name of Force-sensitive children all over the universe. On our way to the temple, we meet the very cute, lovable robot BD-1. BD-1 is able to help us enter the vault said to contain the holocron, where we meet the Jedi Master Cordova, who envisioned the downfall of the Jedi while meditating. To get the holocron, we had to go through many tests, the first taking place on the planet of Zepho. We need to locate the tomb of Zepho's sages, while also fighting our way through tons of Empire at the same time. Once inside, we learn about a Wookiee friend of Cordova known as
Chieftain Tarful.
On our way to meet him, we learn that Seer was really a Jedi Master who had a Padawan herself known as Trilla. More on that later, because now it's time to find the Chieftain. Tarful is known to be very elusive, and even more so now as the planet is under attack from the Empire. We have to fight through them alongside Saw Gerrera
Hey! Who are you?
and rescue the many Wookiees that have been imprisoned. Gerrera asks Cal to join the cause, but Cal keeps true to his mission, but with the promise that they will find Tarful. We fly back to Zepho, where we explore the tomb of Mictril, and we come face to face with the Second Sister yet again, where after we have a short battle, she reveals herself as Trilla, Seer's ex-Padawan, that Seer sold out to save herself. We leave her and continue exploring to find another message from Cordova, who mentions that to find the holocron we need something called an astrium, but before we go find one, we are captured by the Haxium brood. Here, we are forced to find our way out of our cell and fight tons of the universe's various animals, ending with the bounty hunter that caught you to begin with. Seer and Grease were able to brute force their way in and pick us up. We then get information that Tarful has been found and we need to meet up with them on the planet of Kashyyyk. We had to make our way all the way up the origin tree, and on our way we meet the Shio bird, who is injured when attacking the Ninth Sister's ship. We help it back to its feet, hit it with a stem, and in return it helps us get farther up the tree. Later down the line, we have to fight the Ninth Sister, and after defeating her, we make our way the rest of the way up and find another message from Cordova, who sends us to Dathomir. While searching for Kujet's tomb, we meet Night Sister Marin. While fighting through her droves of Night Brothers, we meet a shady traveler to say the least. He tells us not to enter the tomb, but of course we do anyways, and see a vision of the day Order 66 was enacted. We see the death of Cal's master and him trusting him with his lightsaber, which we ended up using up until this point. When we meet his master, he ends up destroying the kyber crystal inside of the lightsaber, which forces Cal to the planet where all Padawan go at some point. Before we get there, we have to get back to our ship, where we learn the Traveler is really a Jedi known as Terran Malicos. After Order 66, Malicos hid in Dathomir and embrace the dark side along with the Night Sister's magic. After Marin attacks Malicos, we escape and fly to Alum and gain our new Kyber crystal, just to get another message from Cordova, who reveals that BD-1's memory was wiped, showing he was truly one of us and not just another little robot, but he understood what needed to be done. After Cal returns to Kujet's tomb, we have a one-on-one talk with Marin, which puts us on good terms, and now we have to fight and defeat Malicos with the help of Marin. After the fight, Cal and Marin find the Astrium, and Marin wants to fight alongside us. We make our way back to Bogano for what should have been the last time, but we meet Trilla once again, where she takes the holocron from us and flees to the... We see what really happened the day Trilla became an Inquisitor, and Cere finally owns up to everything and embraces the Force once again, wielding a lightsaber once more. She accepted her title of Jedi Master and makes Cal a Jedi Knight before heading to the fortress, where we fight Trilla in the same room Cere was tortured all those years ago. We defeat Trilla just to come face to face with Darth Vader, who kills Cere and forces us to run, where we are barely able to escape, partially due to the help of Cere, who almost slips into the dark side of the Force, which makes her freeze. We narrowly escape and end up almost drowning because we used our rebreather on Cere, just to be saved by Marin and woken up by Grease. After making sure everyone's alright, we open the holocron and decide to destroy it, so that nobody can use the names to destroy or rebuild the Jedi Order. It needs to be all up to the Force.
So where to now?
Not only did I not expect anything from this story, because I'm not really a Star Wars fan, but I really didn't expect to feel anything. I thought it was going to give me a similar feeling to Grand Theft Auto or watching some other action movie. A lack of emotion and an action itch being scratched. But honestly, from the beginning, I felt more than I would have ever thought I would. When Trilla originally told us about what originally happened with Cere, I was honestly rethinking everything that we had been told up to that point. I genuinely despised her, and not until the end when she throws herself at Vader did I even want to believe that she had changed. And luckily, she wasn't the person Trilla was painting her to be. She truly had changed and wanted to make things right. Then there's BD-1. I should know by now that the little robot in these games is always going to take my heart and make me feel more than I should, because I felt the pain when BD-1 was hurt by the little fucking rat thing. And I was so happy that he survived the entire time and felt genuine panic when we woke up and he wasn't on my shoulder. Finally, there's the part where we face the fear of our master blaming us and make our own lightsaber, and honestly that made me feel more attached to Cal than anything. We see him battle with himself on if it was his fault or not, and we can get that much needed closure, which is something I know and battle through myself, not in terms of death, but feeling like I failed and disappointed everyone when I made a mistake, or even when I didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but took the blame anyway. Even at the end when we destroy the holocron, I think it rounded out the story well, and left it open enough to get a sequel, which we are, but that doesn't mean I'm not disappointed. I think it was kind of annoying that the entire story built up to this point. Everything we went through, all the people we killed to get this thing, all the battles we fought just to destroy the one thing we wanted from the beginning. I get it though, it's to save the Force-sensitive children, but it did make it feel like a useless adventure. Don't get me wrong, I'm still excited about Survivor, but yeah, that was a little bit deflating.
Hit me! Jedi will never be victorious.
This is not gonna happen. Oh, even her lightsaber slows? Interesting. Ow. So mid-fight, I kicked off my socks, and they almost broke my chair. So now that my chair's fixed, this is the one. I also just punched my microphone and made it peak. Awesome. Alright. 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 I'll back away. Alright. 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 Just... Yeah, just kill me. Alright, that was just rude. That was just uncalled for. Trilla! Thank you.
They should have never believed in you.
They should have never believed in you! I'm gonna blame the fact that I don't play PlayStation. That is just my excuse.
You're going to regret that.
I would do better if I was on Xbox. Why do you always do it so close? That is actually just unfair. I phased through the ground! Okay, but I made it halfway. That's the first time I've seen that. I don't think I'll see it again. But I'm getting there. Oh. 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 Oh, I think I did it. If any of you had happened to see the Doom video, granted, not many people have, you know I love a game that forces you to explore. I love seeing everything a game has to offer, and that's partially why I hunt achievements and trophies. This game does exactly what I want it to do. I don't have to go down a specific path. Of course, since this is more story-based and has a predetermined path, it is a little bit more linear than Dark Souls or Elden Ring, but you can go and explore any planet at any time. If you want, you can rush and get lightsaber and BD1 upgrades before you should in terms of the story. I personally stuck to the story, exploring branching paths and murdering anybody in my path, and that's something that's always intrigued me about these games. I could have gone straight to Dathomir, and I'm sure many people did. The paths aren't always fixed in these games, and even less so when we get to the Dark Souls series, where we're able to skip entire sections if you really want to. Nobody's experience is going to be exactly the same. Unless you're a speedrunner. I didn't think about that. That's beside the point. One thing that bothered me about the exploration was the constant back and forth towards the end of the game. Instead of introducing new planets or areas, we just revisited old planets over and over. While this works perfectly for the story, it does seem a little jumbled when trying to wrap up the story in the final hours. It seems we were on each planet for such a small amount of time that it felt sort of padded up until the final area and battle, which I think was really interesting. We end up fighting Trilla, and it is the hardest boss in the game, but I think her mechanics and attacks are easy enough to understand once you learn them, and I felt myself getting closer and closer as I learned her patterns, even though sometimes it seemed like utter bullshit. I felt that sense of accomplishment for the first time that many people say beating a boss in the Souls games make you feel. There's even a good amount of variation when it comes to the combat, which I wasn't expecting when it came to lightsaber combat. I thought the entire time it was going to be the single lightsaber and using the Force, but with the addition of the double-sided lightsaber and even Force attacks where you split the lightsaber into two separate weapons, sadly it's only for specific attacks and I wish it could have been more of an option, but it's there. Something that I was expecting going into these types of games is more freedom of character, and honestly I knew going into this that From Software games are far more advanced when it comes to being able to build your character in whatever way you choose, but was disappointed when I couldn't more heavily focus on the Force or heavy attacks. The game's reliance on the Force was shown from the beginning. The entire story takes place because Cal is caught using the Force, and is a little disappointing when the heavier attacks are attached to the Force instead of a separate stamina bar that naturally refills. Instead, the system we got where the Force only regenerates when hitting an enemy or using a stim. Another dream I was sold was that my hand would not be held as much as it was. In gameplay trailers and alpha footage that were released, there are set pieces, but there isn't an over-reliance on shiny blue figures or listening to Cal talk to BD1 when you're stuck at a puzzle. But on the full game, there is. I often found myself stuck at puzzles, but not because they're difficult or because I can't figure out how to do it, but because the mechanics at play are finicky at best. There was no magnetization or leeway when it came to the puzzles, which is perfectly okay, but not when the basis of your puzzle needs to be pixel perfect and relies on more factors than my own knowledge. The Force is not a perfect system that always lends itself to puzzles, even though at the same time there were some I really enjoyed. Talking more on the Force, it's a fun mechanic, but I felt myself leaning on it a bit too much when it came to Trilla and other late game enemies. I found myself relying on it instead of it being an option, and I think that's my fault entirely. I found myself getting frustrated and using it as a way to slow down a fight and get some cheap hits in. I really wish in retrospect that I had just stuck it out, but I got to a point where I wanted anything the game would give me. I used it as a crutch instead of using it to help me or to help with combos and variation in general. I do think the slowdown really lends itself to be a crutch, and sometimes that was probably put in place to slow it down for someone like me or younger Star Wars fans that may not necessarily be used to the Soul style combat, and I get it, but it's on me for relying on it. Overall, I think this was a perfect place to start. I wouldn't recommend this to just Star Wars fans because it's an amazing Star Wars story, but also to Souls fans because you don't need a large amount of Star Wars knowledge to jump in and just play. I would recommend this to almost everyone who has even the slightest interest in either franchise. If you're amazing at Soulsborns, then this will be a cakewalk. There aren't many points where even I got stuck as someone who played basically Call of Duty up until I started this channel. If you're like me, it's really easy to get into this style of games, and I'm hoping that when I go play Dark Souls, that there will be some basic mechanics that will carry over. I'm not too sure, but we'll see. There isn't much more for me to say, so I'll leave it here, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks, where I hopefully finish the World at War video. Okay. Okay. What are you, a fucking vampire?